Well, hey there, folks. It's Rachel here, and I am joined today with the fabulous Beyond Survivor, Siobhan. Hello, lady. How are you doing? Awesome. Well, Siobhan and I were just catching up a little bit via email, and I thought, wow, it would be really great to just have a conversation. She graduated from the Beyond Surviving program back in 2017. So it's been 2 years since you went on that journey with me. And, one of the things when I started this work that I was really very committed to is that this work would have staying power, that it wouldn't just be something that you kind of did and then it filtered off and then you were right back where you started. Because I certainly in my own healing journey had plenty of experiences like that, and was very frustrated by that and upset by that, felt like I had wasted my time and my energy and my money. And so I know there's just been so many beautiful things that have been happening for you since you graduated, but I wondered if we could actually start a little bit further back to when you started. And maybe you could talk with us a little bit about what life was like for you when you first reached out to consider joining the Beyond Surviving program.
Sure. Um, at that time, I felt very like stuck in loops and just like almost just rut stagnant sort of patterns. And I had a lot of, as I still do to this day, a lot of ideas about where I wanted my life to go, but wasn't able to sort of really follow through. And I had been struggling with a lot of issues. I don't need to go into all of that at the moment, but um, I was enrolled in a class. I had grad school on the horizon, but I couldn't like figure out what the exact path was I wanted to take. And I found this one class, and it was an exploration of sexual violence and history in the background of that. And you, as you remember, were a guest lecturer. And just in hearing you speak about your approach and the way that you were looking at this, I knew there was like an instinctual, oh, this is the person. And I'd been to, 4 or 5 other, and most it was all very like traditional mainstream psychotherapists, and I had just consistently felt pathologized for my experience. And a, a lot of times the attitude was like, here's the medication.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I felt like I was just consistently misunderstood. And so just in hearing you speak in this, what it was like an, I don't know, 45 minutes.
Yeah. It's so funny, Siobhan, because I've never ever done that kind of thing again. It was like a one-time thing, and I really truly believe it was like there just to connect with you. I really have deep beliefs like that we have divine appointments, and that day in class was really just meant to help draw you out and help us get connected, because I've never gone back and I've never repeated that sort of like going into classrooms and teaching again. Isn't that something?
It's incredibly impactful. I obviously like it changed the course of my life. And
Mhm.
that's not something I would ever say, obviously, lightly. Like I'm not somebody who like joins program. I'm not like a group joiner. It's not who I am. But because of my experiences, I was sexually assaulted as a small child, and then again in early adolescence, and then again in college, and then I had a partner, a long-term partner. So it was just a series of things that had seriously affected me. And it's just fascinating to look at the trajectory of the last few years. And there's a lot of external change, but it was really, I mean, it sounds silly to really say, but it had to start internally.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I greatly credit the work that I did with you, with the change that I was able to make in my own life.
Mm.
And yeah, so
Oh man, yeah, thank you for that. And when we think back to making that decision, there was something that you connected into as far as what I was saying about how do we actually heal from sexual trauma. And do you remember any of the specifics of that? Like what really connected or sounded different to you from maybe some of the other things that you've been hearing or had tried in the past?
honestly, I mean, this is when we started our work together, it was before the Me Too movement. It was honestly, this might sound a little silly, but even though it was only a few years ago, it was a different time. And
Mm-hmm.
I had not opened up about those experiences. And when I started to in therapy, like it wasn't given any credence for the impact that it had actually had on my life. So in all honesty, it was kind of this overarching concept of this has had this impact, and then learning the ways in which it had really affected how I trusted, the ways that I allowed myself to become vulnerable and not, a lot of work around boundaries, and and then like deeper, just how it had affected like trust, not just in other people but
Mm-hmm.
self. uh,
Yeah.
and when I say that, when you came to speak, there was an instinctual, oh shit, like this, there's a connection, I need to speak further with this woman. And me really honoring and trusting that was part of that, really like the foundation and cornerstone of me beginning to really like expand upon that and understand that in order to really move forward, like I had to trust myself and I had to learn to
Mm. let
let go of a lot of, to put it very eloquently, the bullshit
Yes, girl. Yes.
that
Right?
had left on every part of me, from the way that I was going about my everyday life, the way that I was perceiving myself, somatically, how I was holding it.
Mm.
And yeah, it's hard to even language how, like, acknowledging the impact that sexual trauma had has had on you, and then moving forward with that, like it's really, I sometimes I struggle with it, and I've been completing a master's degree like in this effort to understand a lot of this. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I've spoken with some people who are in the field, and I had this one person say, like, wow, it seems like you've done a lot of work on your own trauma and your own wounds. And I credit the work
Mm.
that I did in Beyond Surviving with helping me move past that.
Yeah. I'm so excited to hear more about the work that you're up to in your life today. And before we dive into that, what would you say were some of the major shifts, the major gains that particularly have really stayed with you from the time that we worked together?
Kind of what I just touched upon too, the trust in
Mm.
myself, that had been almost utterly decayed. And there's this thing that I will never forget, and again, I think it's those little things that really stick and stay with you. And I don't know if this is something you still show to clients, so maybe spoilers alert, but it was a video of a very small little girl. She was like perhaps
Yes, Jessica. Yeah, that little girl. Mm-hmm.
sitting up on the counter, and she's singing in the mirror. She's like,
Yes.
like, I'm the bee's knees. I'm someone who's I've worked with children for a long time,
Yeah.
and I am really like I've loved that spirit, that indomitable spirit, and I see and part of like why I've worked with children is that that's contagious. There's an aspect of that I can conquer the world, and a belief in oneself, and like it's I mean it's part of why it's heartbreaking to see in working with kids who've been traumatized how that has already started to affect them. Um, but getting back to that, like on a personal level, remember like hearing these stories. My mom has this great story of when I was like 2. Her mother was incredibly abusive and had her up on a wall and was like yelling, and a bunch of people in the family were kind of standing back like, oh, I don't know what I should do. And I was 2 years old and I got between them and like told my grandmother like she could take it somewhere else and
Wow, nice.
my mother, and my mom like tells that story about like, oh, you were kind of a little badass when you were 2, and that is me, but because of the trauma and the experiences that I'd been through, that had been eaten away to such an
Yeah.
extent, that I was like a ghost and a ghost of that.
Mm.
And so to be able to reclaim that was so powerful that it's had this ripple effect in all these other areas. So I think that that's probably um, like, I don't know, it's like my favorite.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, I remember when we first connected, seeing that in you, seeing that strength, seeing that formidable self, but also really seeing how it had become kind of pushed to the background. You weren't able to express that part of yourself a lot because of the trauma. And it was a beautiful thing through our work together to see all sorts of little moments of like, ooh, I just stood up for myself here. Oh yeah, I set that boundary there, and man, I'm really starting to take care of myself in ways that I haven't before. And just seeing you really stretch and grow. And a big part of our conversation was actually about your future and your career. And I think that's a nice thing to highlight, that the Beyond Surviving program, certainly we talked a lot about the trauma, right? And how do we get complete about that and how to resolve that. But we were also talking about like what's happening in your life right now. How's it going dating that guy? And what do you want to do with your future? And what's that going to look like? And just working through some of that angst about, what is my future path? Is it this, or is it that, or is it this? So tell us a little bit about where you've landed. You're doing a master's program now. You're working on a thesis, all sorts of really amazing things that you're up to. So say more about that.
It's been something that I dreamt and wanted for a very long time. I had this thought that I wanted to be an art therapist, and a lot of that had to do with my personal experience. Like, was a I've been reading trauma stewardship and like understanding trauma mastery is like a big part of my journey. I feel like
Mm.
wanting to spread this back, like this, my experience dovetails with the macro world that we're living in, where as survivors, which let's be real and let's be honest, majority of women are, and that's not all, but it is a very
Yeah,
scarily large number, right?
that's
And
right.
I know from personal experience that the core of me has always been this strong human, but because of the experiences of trauma, I had gotten into this place where I was ashamed of who I was and was constantly apologizing for that. And like, this is just a tool of the patriarchy to use to
Mm. Yes. Double down on that. That's right. Yeah, keeps women disempowered. Absolutely.
strong women who would use their voice to speak out for others. And like when I talk about the ripple effect, I see it in my own community. I see it with the work that you've done, and I think that that's the power of it. Like it's incredible to me to see the transformation for myself personally. Um, and to understand that it wasn't ever about fixing me, that I wasn't broken, and to turn that back, and be able in so many different ways. Like, yes, I'm pursuing a master's degree, and that's wonderful and it's beautiful, and I'm really excited about it. But it's all these other facets. And, while we were working together, I had left. I was a preschool teacher for years and I loved that work, but it was also very exhausting and very draining. And I had a lot of ideas about ways that I could transform what I'd been doing and do it differently. And you gave me a lot of encouragement and a lot of hope for possibility. And I started my own business and I'm still currently running it. And it's awesome. Because I get to do all these things that I
Yeah.
was teaching, but I get to do it in a different facet.
Mm-hmm.
I run a creative arts and outdoor adventure program for early elementary kids. Um, and I have 18 kids in the program. And
Amazing.
it's my pride and my joy. And it feeds me in this very powerful way. Like I've said earlier in this thread, I love working with children. So I get to do that, but I get to be my own boss. I get to just,
Yes.
like I get to decide what we're doing that day. And I'm outside of the jurisdiction really of being in a classroom. The hours are wonderful because I work after school. So I've had the opportunity to go to grad school and I graduate, fingers crossed, don't want to
Double, double, double.
like count these eggs before they hatch. But and I will have my master's, and I've also been working as a counselor at a nonprofit. It's a it's an agency in the mission called the Liberation Institute, and I really love working for them because they provide really like you basically, if you need services, you can get services for free if needed, but it's
Wonderful.
low cost services. And that's something I strongly believe in, that anyone who needs to access mental health should be able to do so.
Yeah.
So I feel this like coming together of all these parts of myself where I get to do work with children, I get to work with art. I have 3 dogs and I get to spend a lot of time with my dogs and kids outdoors. And then this component of my life where I'm getting to do reparative work with adults who've been highly traumatized. And just for me, like I can know where I've come from, where 7, 8 years ago, like getting up in the morning was heartbreaking. Like getting through every day was just such a struggle. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say like I don't have problems. That's
What? You mean everything isn't like a sunshine and rainbows every single day? What? Yeah.
but my ability, I feel like, to not just cope, but to even to thrive amidst um, still ongoing challenges and struggles. And
Mm. Wow, Siobhan, I'm so, just for you all listening, I'm hearing these updates in real time. So I'm like, what, you're doing that? What, you're doing that? That's amazing. So I knew that you had started this business, but I had no idea that it had grown and reached the level that it has grown, and that you're doing your master's and are so close to completing that process. And, just even being able to see you in this space of vitality and energy, and really just, one of the things I say all the time in the program is that it's really about being able to create the life that you love. independent of the experience of trauma. And that when things happen, when you do have hard days or something comes up, that you feel, like you were saying, just really equipped to navigate that and challenge it so it doesn't derail you, right? You don't go off into all these spirals that then take you out of your purpose and your intention in your life. And I can't think of anyone better to be doing the work that you're doing, Siobhan. I have always, always seen you as a world changer, somebody who is out to make a really big difference in really big ways. And so the fact that you're constructing this life for yourself, right? And from that empowered place, connecting into your choice and your authorship and, you know, holding yourself in that place of real confidence and capability is just, it's so beautiful to witness. So proud of you.
And it's really, it's monumental to even say, to have this conversation, because it's kind of, when you're with it daily, you often don't give it the credit that maybe it deserves. And like the I write a lot, and I've been writing even more, obviously, I mean, and getting a master's degree, so
Like you nothing but writing, yes, all day long.
but aside from the academic writing, like to have my own personal writing, and one of my this is off, it's a fantasy dream, but I write a lot, and I want to publish my own prose. And I have, part of being an art therapist is I have this art portfolio coming up, sort of juxtaposing my, and so I've been going back through all my journals and everything, and like I want to just bring everything together in one manuscript. But in doing that, I've been really combing through all of the major changes that I really haven't, and like this perspective, because it really, I mean, that's the, if that's the one thing I could leave anyone with, it's like, it's all perspective shifting. It's no, like, I mean, nothing external really came in and did this. This was like me working within my own head and reframing it, and like you being one of the people to give me tools to help me do that, was so critical. Um, I
Mm.
Yeah, I think that it's something, I have a lot of skepticism and cynicism for a lot of programs, and so this is really like, this is the only like major program other than going to grad school that I've ever done, and it was, for me, just absolutely worth it. And it is something where I credit the change that I've gone through with a lot of the things. And I've used some of the tools that you've given me, not just for myself, but in working with other people, because they're really critical foundational
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah.
This is where I get really excited about, my work and my legacy, because I love that you're taking what you learned and passing it on. And I love that what so much of what we talked about and worked on in the program is kind of just there. It's just integrated. It's not something that you have to like think about, right? It's just become a part of your day to day and how you live your life and how you show up and how you navigate challenges. And that's really, for me, what I mean when I say beyond surviving, that you're just living your life and you navigate whatever comes, come back to your toolkit, come back to your support, come back to your resources as needed. But that we also go out and make those changes, and not just in the realm of sharing tools, but every little person who gets to spend a moment with you and be and bask in your love and your nurturing, that's a ripple effect. The fact that you have this business now that wasn't there when we started the program, and maybe the potential was there, but the pathway to it felt really shut down. I get excited about that. Every little person, the work that you're doing in the nonprofit, every life that you're touching. um, it's just for me, when I think about the big goals behind why I started this work, it's for things just like that. It's so much bigger than me. It's really about how do we create change on a global level, on a societal level. And it's through, every single person who reclaims their life from trauma so that you can go out and make the difference that you want to make in the world, regardless of how that looks and what that is for you. I cannot wait to buy your book. And I'm going to say yes, hashtag 2021, let's bring that in. Yeah, all of that's just, super, super amazing, Siobhan. So, it's for me thinking about, I want to be able to call people up, years after finishing the program together and say, how's your life now and what's working and how are you doing? And to hear these sorts of stories. Again, life is long, so challenges come and we have bad days and challenges pop up, but that when we're more often than not living in our strongest, best self, and feeling like we're not constantly thinking about the trauma or working through the trauma. Would you say that's part of your experience today, that it's a lot, it's less and less and less about looking to the past and exploring those traumas and more about just kind of dealing with what life is handing you in the present?
Oh, absolutely. And understanding when things are really rough, and like not having to blame myself when I am having a rough day. Like I think back to sometimes in some conversations you and I had and some phrases you used, and I still use these to this day of like, I'm a beautiful girl having a lazy day off.
Yes.
I kind of get tired of like some phrases, obviously, that, are really important in theory, but also I feel like can get overused, like self-care, which
Mm,
has this like tired out feeling to it.
yeah.
I've started to just put different ways of conceptualizing that in my own mind. And sometimes it's like my friend and I were calling it reparative work.
Mm,
And whatever that looks like, it's drinking a glass of water, it's taking a nap, it's hanging out with your friends, your pets, going to the beach, doing these things that restore who
yeah.
you are so that you can go back out and continue to keep doing whatever it is. And I feel like all of our lives are just automatically improved when each one of us are in healthier emotional, mental, and physical states. Like it's that I'm gonna use it again, but the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Favorite memories, my dad and I, when we were kids, it was really simple. We just go throw little pebbles in this pond. And I think about that often just with the people in my life and like the effect so many people have had on me. And like when we're showing up as our best selves, whatever that looks like, um, it's automatically going to create, I don't know, just a better environment. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway,
Mm.
I could go out.
I know. Man, I feel you though. I could go on and about that too, because ultimately, the more each individual in our, world is healthy and whole, the better off we're all going to be. And so, I want to just really honor you for the work that you've done, because all I ever am is just a guide, and creating some space and creating some opportunity, teaching some very specific tools, but ultimately it comes down to you, having taken those things and applied them and used them and continued to use them. We talk about Beyond Surviving as a lifestyle, not a program. It's a way of keeping ourselves in alignment, a way of staying in choice, a way of staying in our empowered self. So when you think about the men and women who might be watching this video and thinking about going on this kind of journey, are there any words that you would like to offer to them?
I think that the thing that I keep coming back to is being able to trust yourself. Like in this place of vacillating around. And I hear that a lot of, and like I resonate with it so much of like being in spiral and loop patterns, and feeling stuck.
Mm,
And I really, I can only attest to my own experience, but I'm really grateful that I did this work in this program, because I now I'm really grateful for the way that my life has changed and the direction that it's taken. And I can just see like the continued effect that it has. And so I look around and I know so many people are suffering with so many different things and like feeling like they're gonna live in their trauma.
mm,
And it's a shitty way to go through life to that's like I don't think any one thing is the answer, but I do know that taking some action. Um, I read the other day, I was like, taking action is anxiety's worst enemy. And I was,
that's good. Yes. Yeah.
because yeah, it can just, it feels paralyzing. And who knows, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, there may be other lives or not, but like what we know is there's this. And I would have really, like any human, I would have great days and I would have horrible days, but the horrible days would just used to just take me out. And there was
Mm,
so, I don't know, there were a lot of layers there. And I feel like this helped me peel back and get to some core and then like continue to build in a different direction and yeah, definitely just feeling more empowered that I had way more agency
mm, awesome.
to construct my life. So
Yes. Oh my gosh. It is such a beautiful thing. And I really am very just grateful that you decided to come along and share a little update with like, where in the world are you now? And I hope it's the first of just many of these sorts of conversations that I get to have with my Beyond Surviving graduates. And it's just really amazingly beautiful to see, what you're out in the world doing and what you're creating. And I always tell, Siobhan knows this, it's really hard to get rid of me. So I will be in touch. I'll keep continuing to reach out and what's going on now, what's the latest, and I'm always here as a resource and support to you too, as you know. And for those of you listening, I just hope that you've taken a little piece of inspiration and hope from our conversation today. And of course, if there's any way that I can support you in your journey, don't hesitate to reach out. Siobhan, blessings to you, best wishes to you, love you much. I look forward to talking again soon. Thanks so much for being here today.
thanks for having me. Take care.
Mwah.